About a week ago, I came across this web page which explained how you should use the I Ching and how important it was to ask a question to the I Ching, and that you really had to know what you were asking, because without a good question, you would never get a proper or understandable response from the I Ching. And when I read that, I thought, oh no, not again. And I was getting really frustrated and even angry about these authors who think that you have to follow certain rules that they didn't have in ancient China. And so I was about to make a video um, ranting about these stupid rules and how we in the West actually have quite a different way of using the I Ching than they did in early China. So, but after my blood pressure had lowered a little bit, I thought, no, let's not do that. Me ranting about another person's good intentions, that might not be good for my fan base. So I thought, let's take a different approach. Um, let's show by example. So, and I have gathered a few examples of early I Ching usage, which I want to cover in a few videos. Actually, I want this to become a series of videos. Um, and each video is going to explain in detail an example from the early books, or maybe not so early books, that's also possible, showing how they used the I Ching in ancient China. So this can be examples from the Zhuochuan, it can also be examples from later literature. And of course, I'm going to use material from Zhang Binghe's Jiaoyi Gushikao, because that book contains um, a lot of these early examples. So that will probably be my main source. So what I find interesting about these early examples is that they show certain principles, if they had principles, that might surprise many contemporary I Ching users. So, and this is just my view of these examples. I'm going to explain what I see in these examples, how I read the original Chinese text in which the example is mentioned, and I also comment on certain translations of these examples. So that's my idea, to start a series of videos with examples of I Ching usage from China, early China, preferable. So, and well, let's hope I'll be able to pull that off. This is the first video with the first example from the Zhuochuan. And I chose this example as a starter because it tells so much about how in the time the Zhuochuan is supposed to be written, the diviners looked at hexagrams and looked at line statements, but also how they consulted the I Ching. And there's so much to unpack in this example, but I'll try to keep this video short. It's not going to happen. I'm sorry, I can't make short videos. So let's just start with this example. And I have this very nifty Stream Deck here, which helps me to switch between scenes, PowerPoint presentations, etc. It also has all these nice buttons. Oh, it also has this button. What does this button do? Oh, oh, you see that? That means that you should not forget to subscribe to my channel. So, but oh, I did it again. Oh, sorry. Let's go to the first example. I know, there's a lot of text on this sheet, and I know I'm not supposed to do that because these sheets in the presentations, they should be easy to read, but I couldn't find any other way. So let's just go through this example from the Zhuochuan and let's dissect it into pieces, and I'll give you my commentary on the go. So this is the translation from Stephen Durand and his colleagues from Zhuochuan tradition commentary on the spring and autumn, and also it's the best translation of the Zhuochuan available to date. Okay. Lady Jiang, oh, by the way, there is a lot of name dropping in these examples, not only this one, but also in future examples. So please bear with me. I'll try to explain each the names whenever possible, that you know who the names are referring to. Lady Jiang, the wife of Lord Xiang of Wei, bore no sons. Oh. Lord Xiang's favorite, Chao Yan, bore Gongmeng Zhi. Chao Yan was one of the concubines of Lord Xiang. Kong Chengzi dreamt that Kang Shu said to him, "Establish Yuan as heir." Kong Chengzi is the diviner in this story, and he also had this dream that Kang Shu, which is the actually the person who started the state of Wei. That is why the why here is important, because Kang Shu is the person who established this state, and Kong Chengzi dreamt that Kang Shu said to him, "Establish Yuan as heir. I will cause your son Ji's grandson Yu and the scribe Go to assist him." The scribe Zhao also dreamt that Kang Shu said to him, "I intend to command your son Go to assist Yuan with Kong Chengzi's great-grandson Yu." Well, isn't that interesting? Two people having a similar dream. The scribe Zhao met with Kong Chengzi and told him his dream, and the dreams matched. In the year when Han Chia of Jin, acting as head of government, made his visit to the princess, Chao Yan bore another son, who was given the name Yuan. So we have the concubine Chao Yan, who bore Gongmeng Zhi. So that's number one, that's the firstborn. And then she bore another son who was given the name Yuan because of these two dreams. So Gongmeng Zhi, the firstborn, feet were deformed. Oh, the poor boy. Kong Chengzi divined about it using the Zhao changes. As he performed the divination, that I put that between brackets because that sentence isn't really in the original, because the original here simply says this word, Yue, which means saying. So you could also say, Kong Chengzi divined about it using the Zhao changes, saying, "May Yuan enjoy the domain of Wei and preside over its altars." In response, he got the hexagram birth throws, hexagram 3. And Kong Chengzi divined again and said, "May I establish Gongmeng Zhi as heir," which is actually the firstborn, "and may he be blessed in it." In response, he got the hexagram 3 again, birth throws in this translation. and the line by which it becomes the hexagram closeness, which is hexagram 8. So, and this is what I already find very interesting in this example, um, because it shows that, at least that's what it shows to me, is that you are allowed to consult the oracle um, several times about the same topic. I mean, that is what is happening here. We have the same situation. Consultation has to choose between two persons, and for each person, he is consulting the I Ching, which was actually quite common practice in ancient China. Mm. So, if anyone ever tells you that you are not allowed to ask several questions about the same situation or the same topic, well, I'm sorry, but that's bullshit, because they did it in China all the time. So, but what is also interesting here is the way the question, which isn't really a question, is phrased, because it uses this word shang, and that's a very common um, keyword in old divination. And actually, I wrote about this in my translation notes at the sixth line of hexagram 9, if I believe, if I'm correct. And there it says, where it explains the character. So this is where we are now. It means, the original meaning is to elevate, to make it the focus of your attention, to give it importance, to choose what follows it. However, in the context of divination, it has a specific meaning when it is at the beginning of a sentence. And the placement of the character here, well, that's more or less the beginning of the sentence. In this usage, it is found in several Warring States divination records. Sorry. And Mark Kalinowski explains it as such. The predictive process starts when someone asks for a consultation on a particular theme, either in the form so and so requests an oracle on such and such subject, or through a charge, a Ming, expressing a wish or a future possibility. For example, in the charge, may he not live until the planned date? Ew, that's a terrible charge. The wish is expressed by the model particle shang. May it be that, placed at the beginning of a sentence. So, in this example, someone is wishing for a certain person to arrive at an early death, I think. Well, anyway, they consulted the I Ching about everything, I think. Or this must have been another kind of oracle, that's also possible. But what it shows is that, and this is also something that we see on oracle bones, this way of phrasing a statement shows that it's about potential situations that you would or would like not like to happen, or that could come true or don't come true. Like in this case, the choice has to be made between Gongmeng Zhi and Yuan, and Gongmeng Zhi is asking the oracle first about Yuan, saying that he had to choose Yuan. That's an option. And the other consultation is that he should choose the firstborn, Gongmeng Zhi, who had terrible feet. We must remember that. So, but it's a wish, something that could or could not be realized. And that's a very different way of approaching the oracle than most people here in the West do, where you have to ask a question. At least that's what most books say. And I've dealt with this topic numerous times in several of my videos, that asking questions isn't really necessary. You can use statements like this, that's fine. You could also use a certain keyword. You don't really have to phrase a question. And I also think, but it's a little small side note, I also think it's not really important that you need to know what you want to know. I don't think that's really important. What is important, however, is that you understand what you will get back from the oracle. Oracles answer questions. There's no doubt about that, because otherwise an oracle would just be a stupid book. But they do more than that. They can help you to shape your future and ook to decide your future. So, and that is actually what I'm sorry, I'm getting really distracted because my Google speaker is suddenly switching on for no reason. Hey Google, stop. I'm not going to edit this out. Anyway, where was I? So this is a proper way of using the I Ching. You don't really need to have a question. You don't need to phrase it in a certain way. You don't need to know what you want to know. But you do need to know what you will get back from the oracle. And what the oracle often gives back is a description of a certain situation that is either good or is bad. And it can also give you the proper way of understanding your situation. And if you understand your situation, if you know what's really going on, instead of assuming that you know what is going on, then you also hopefully know what to do. So with one hexagram, the I Ching can answer several questions at the same time, simply by stating your current situation and how it actually is. And that is, as far as I can see, in most examples, how the I Ching was being used as a tool to find out what is actually going on. And that is also the case with this example, in which actually there's two situations are being described, and this diviner is Gongmeng Zhi is going to make a choice. So another thing that is interesting here, which often will confuse people, is that this diviner asked two different questions, but he received apparently the same or almost the same answer. So a lot of people will think, oh my God, he got hexagram 3 twice. So he got the same answer. No, not really. After all, there is a difference between the two hexagrams, because one hexagram is without moving lines and the other one is with one moving line. So there is a difference between the two. But also the context is different. There is a different context for each hexagram, defined by this Ming, this charge that Gongmeng set to the oracle. So, and that changes the meaning of the hexagram, because a hexagram on itself doesn't really have meaning. Or you could say it has too much meaning. You have to link it to a certain context, and that context defines its meaning. So, and we will see why these two hexagrams are in fact two different answers that actually do point in the same direction. I know I'm sounding fake here, but let's just continue with the example, then you will get what I mean. So, oh, did I press this button? Oh, sorry. So he got these two hexagrams, and he showed these to the scribe Zhao, and the scribe Zhao said, in this translation from Durand, he said, "The yuan or prime is great. What further doubt can there be about it?" Gongmeng said, "Does the hexagram not refer to the eldest son, the elder son?" And he replied, "Since Kang Shu gave him his name, Yuan can be considered the elder. Gongmeng Zhi, being deformed, will not be given his place in the ancestral temple. He cannot be considered the elder. What is more, the line statement for him says it's advantageous to set up a ruler." And there's a note there which I will tell later about. It's the note from the translators of the Zhuochuan. "If it were auspicious for him to succeed his father, then why set up someone? The phrase setting up does not refer to ordinary successions." And actually, this scribe Zhao is right about this. What he is referring to is in the judgment text, these three characters, Li Jianhao, which actually means that it is good, profitable, or advantageous, or whatever you want to call it, to set up, to establish feudal lords. And feudal lords were often brothers or nephews, uncles, who were given a large piece of land and with the instructions to rule that part, that state, if you want. So you only use it for establishing feudal lords. You don't use it when an firstborn has to inherit the throne, and the latter is what we're talking about. So this phrase Li Jianhao does not really correspond with someone who is going to inherit the throne as a firstborn. So, but let's look at this note, just a small something about this note. The note from the translators here, they say that the scribe Zhao here cites the line statement for the first line of closeness, which is the translation here of hexagram 8. But that's not true, because the line statement hexagram 8 is this. So I think this is a small typo, small error here, because the scribe Zhao here is not really citing the line statement of 8, but it's citing actually the judgment text of hexagram 3. So, and we know it's hexagram 3, the judgment text that he's talking about, because he is actually saying here in this translation, the yuan or prime is great, which is these two characters. So that's about this small typo. But there's actually something lost in translation here. So let's look at what the translation says and what the actual text says from the judgment text, and what the text from the Zhuochuan actually says, because that will make the interpretation from the diviner much stronger. Because the translation says, the scribe Zhao said, the yuan or prime is great. What further doubt can there be about it? What further doubt can be about, that's this part. But translating these two characters from the judgment text, these two, yuan heng, as the yuan or prime is great, that does not show the possible impact that these two characters from the judgment text might have on the diviner. Because we see here in the judgment text this character yuan. And yuan is also the name of the second son. And I think that idea, that fact, actually must have had quite an impact on the diviner. You're consulting the I Ching about a certain person, and the name of that person pops up in the text of the oracle. I mean, it's similar to like you're consulting an oracle uh, about whether you um, have to go on a date with this guy called Mark. So you're consulting the I Ching, should I go on a date with Mark? And you're receiving a text that says he shoots his arrow and he hits the mark. I mean, when you get an outcome like that, you read it, you're not hitting a mark, you're hitting the mark. And that the minute something like that would happen, I would think, blows my mind. You're consulting the I Ching about a certain person, and the name of this person is literally in the outcome of the oracle, and that is what is happening here in this example from the Tzuo. The judgment text says Yuan Heng, and Yuan is the name of the second son. So that in itself is, I think, a huge affirmation that this the second son should be chosen, Yuan. So, but that's not the only thing. The charge that the diviner put to the oracle is Yuan as a wish or a desire, Heng, that he will receive or enjoy the state of Wei. Well, this character, Shang, is even in the old days was almost the same, and you can see it in the form as Heng. So his charge was almost literally in the judgment text. And you can read this character Heng, which in its original meaning means that an offering to the ancestors is accepted by these ancestors. You can also read it as that Yuan is being accepted by the ancestors. No, not as a sacrifice. Just don't make it so bloody, please. But that is, I think, that is how you can read these two sentences from the judgment text. That Yuan is being accepted, and when you read that in the translation, the Yuan or prime is great. I mean, that's a proper translation of these two characters, but it doesn't do justice, I think, to how a diviner would perceive these two characters, especially because the name of the second son is in the judgment text. So. And that is, I think, the reason why the scribe Zhao says that, well, what doubt can there be about it? I mean, when you see that as an outcome, you see the name of this person explicitly in the oracle, in the text, what doubt can there be about it? So I completely understand why he says that. So Richard Rudd says about this whole case, because he also translated this case in his Zhao Yi translation. There's no reference to constituent trigrams, but there is an unusual degree of self-interest on the part of those reading the omens. I'm not really sure about the latter, but it is true that in this case, trigrams are not referenced. And that is in itself interesting, because in a lot of other examples from the Tzuo, the trigrams are being mentioned and are being interpreted. And in this case, the author doesn't do that. But as you can see from this example, and let's go back because you can see here in the judgment text that there is this phrase "Wu Yong Yawang," don't use an expedition, don't have an expedition somewhere far away. That's also in the judgment text, but the diviner doesn't refer to it at all. He completely seems to ignore it. So what this tells me, and I think that a lot of people who use I Ching will really object to this, but what it shows to me is that you don't necessarily need to use all the parts of an answer. It is okay to focus on these parts, on these sentences that are relevant in your situation. And what it doesn't seem to be relevant, you can simply ignore that. And that is also, I think, what the diviner did here. He ignored that sentence because it wasn't really relevant for his situation. And he also didn't use the trigrams here because maybe he thought they weren't relevant. But let's do that. Let's indulge me for a moment. Because what would have happened if he would have used the trigrams? Well, actually, I think the trigrams only make his argument to choose Yuan stronger. Because if we look at the trigrams of this hexagram, of hexagram 3, because that's the hexagram that we're looking at, we can see that the lower trigram is thunder, and thunder refers to the eldest son. In family, it refers to the eldest son. You can see that here in this small, in this picture. So, and so Gongmeng Zhi was the eldest son. So he's the lower trigram, and Yuan is the second son. And trigram water actually refers to the second son. That's what it says here. So if you think I'm making this all up as we go, no, this is stuff that is really found in the 10 wings. These are old associations from the trigrams. So these family members are already mentioned in the Shogwa chapter from the 10 wings. So Thunder is the eldest son, and Yuan is the second son. And you see here that Gongmeng Zhi, low trigram, is actually following Yuan. So Yuan is coming first, and Gongmeng Zhi is following him. So what you actually see here is that the trigrams and the way they are positioned, they seem to confirm this idea that Yuan should be the first and Gongmeng Zhi should be the second. Because Yuan is on top, and the lower trigram is considered to follow the upper trigram. So would the diviner have looked at the trigrams, he probably would have come to the same conclusion. And that also goes for the hexagram 3 that was received for Gongmeng Zhi. Because with hexagram 3, with Gongmeng Zhi, the first line was moving in the hexagram. And when it comes to body parts, trigram thunder refers to the feet. And when we see the whole hexagram as a representation of the whole body, then the first line also refers to the feet. So we have two two images that point to the feet. And in this case, there's something happening with the feet because Trigram's thunder is changing to earth. So you could see um, this moving first line as an indication that there's something with the feet. And it changes to earth, and earth is the opposite of trigram heaven. And heaven is the trigram of leadership. And earth is the trigram of following and not moving, no action. So we have here feet that are not moving, that are being more or less receptive and need to follow instead of taking the initiative. So this hexagram also shows that Gongmeng Zhi should be a follower and not a leader. And this is actually how it happened. I think this is last sheet. Yeah, it's last sheet. This is actually what happened. Yuan was chosen as the ruler of the state of Wei, and Gongmeng Zhi became a very valuable advisor to Yuan. And I think this example shows how you can read the text from an early example from Zhou Zhuan, and how reading the actual Chinese original text can help you to understand the case a little bit better instead of working from a translation. But I think it also shows that using the I Ching or oracles in general was a really fluid kind of and they used very fluid kind of approach. The diviner no doubt knew about trigrams, but he didn't use these, and he also ignored certain parts from the text of the I Ching because probably because he didn't find them relevant. So anyway, this is my view of this example. I do hope you like the way I present it and my approach to it. I hope that more examples will follow. I have already gathered a few for future videos, which I personally find very interesting cases. So, what are your thoughts on this? Do you agree with my view or not? Or would you interpret this hexagram in a different way? Do you have additional insights? Um, and what does this example show you about how the I Ching was used in ancient China? So, well, sorry for all the cough and I'm recovering from a very nasty flu. But I'm not going to do this video again, so this is what it is going to be. Thank you for watching, and well, leave your comments, I think, here below. Did I already press this button? Oh, yeah, there we go again. Okay, thank you for watching, and see you next time. Thank you, bye.